Happy Monday, y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in.
What up, K Short? What's good with you, bro?
Hit that share button. What's good, everybody? This is the Awakened Man and the Awakened Woman live here on TikTok.
Steph, how you doing? Good to see you.
My co-host was bit MIA last week, but we made it do what it did, and it was a great show. He was here in spirit.
Yeah, you was here, so that was enough. You don't need me.
Cut it out. Cut it out. This week, last week we talked about, I had my girlfriend Pisces up here with me, and I've been along with her for a great part of her spiritual journey and her alignment with the life that she truly wants to live. So that was great. That was wonderful. This week we are choosing to switch it up. And I forgot my ribbon. Anyways, I usually wear my ribbon. For those of you that are unaware, yes, it is the month of October, which the biggest awareness month for breast health awareness. I never like to say breast cancer awareness. I like to say breast health awareness because that is the ultimate goal for the movement itself. This month also is domestic violence, and we're going to say DV for the rest of this time if we can, just for purposes. DV Awareness Month. And tonight, Dom and I are choosing to share our stories. For those of you that don't know, I am a DV survivor. I was in a 7-year relationship with someone who did not initially present this version of himself, but a few years in, it did become unhealthy. Let's just say that. And during that time, there was a lot of awakening that was taking place, a lot of awareness that was happening, a lot of dismantling of an old identity, of an old belief system of self. And it actually woke me up to become even greater than I was. Now, that's not the case for everybody. That's just my personal story of how it unfolded into the version of me that you see. No, I am not what I look like. I don't look like what I've been through. Okay. It was a moment in time for me to really dive into learning who I was, learning how to love myself, learning how to choose myself, learning how to want better for me and for my son. And tonight's conversation, I feel like, is going to be great because you're going to see two sides of a coin. And realistically, Dom and I have talked about this. How we get into these spaces are really identical on both ends. So I want engagement tonight. I want people to come in, and I want you to share certain stories about relationships, family ships, friendships that have affected you. If in this realm, if not, that's fine as well. Or if you know of people, we're here to provide clarity, understanding, and understanding of how we find ourselves in these spaces and how we also elevate ourselves out of them. I don't want to say get out of them, but elevate ourselves out of them. So that's a little bit of my story. The advocate himself.
And so for those that don't know about me, I also have a story in the DV world. And I come from being a survivor as a child to becoming someone that was abusive as an adult. And so for those that don't know, there are stats that show that children that grow up in homes with domestic violence or toxic relationships, they're typically, there are stats that show that those children will either become victims or they will become abusers themselves. And in my case, I became abusive. This was a normal behavior in my home. It was nothing to see something flying across the room. It was nothing to see somebody fighting. And ironically enough, I learned this behavior from my mother. Now, when I say that, I don't I'm not disparaging my mom. I love my mom. I had a great relationship with her since before she passed away. But just giving y'all context for the story, I learned the behavior from her. But then again, where did she learn it from? Who did this to her? She learned it from my grandparents. She learned it from my biological father, who was abusive to her. So it was actually a normal thing. And so when I was in the mode of being someone that was toxic and abusive, it was nothing to me. It was just like, oh, this is what you do when you get upset or somebody pisses you off. This is how you respond. You respond with power and control and dominance. That's what you do. And so, throughout my process and my spiritual journey, it's been an unlearning of the things that I learned, and then a reckoning with myself. It's been repair with myself. It's been repair with my ex, not to where we get back together, but just repair like, hey, let's co-parent our kids. It's been repair with the kids. It's been repair with the community. It's been repair with whomever I come in contact with, because this is the work that I do now. Dawn and I are both showing all of you here what this is like on both sides of the coin. There's pain all around in this scenario, and it requires healing. It requires growth. It requires acknowledgement. And some people will downplay DV, domestic abuse, like it's nothing. And no, it's real. It happened. I was one that was doing. I watched it as a kid. I did it as an adult. I know the dynamics of power and control. I know the jealousy, the rage, the anger. I know all of that, and I know how to get out of that too. So this is and I'm eternally grateful for the awakening that I had, because I had an awakening, and I say in one of my videos, I awoke to myself first. It was not about anybody else. It wasn't about the world, the state of affairs and politics and how bad. No. It was, bro, look in the mirror. You are the one. You are the one that needs to change. And it wasn't about anybody else. And then I was able to accept the truth about myself. And when I was able to accept the truth about myself, everything else after that didn't stand a chance if it was a lie. Then I started going outward, like looking at the world and the conditioning and all of those things. It was like, okay, I know the truth about me. So I'm not I make sure that I have to be truth has to be in me, and the rest of my environment has to follow suit. So there's a lot more to the story. We're going to dive into it. But just so you know, you are seeing both sides of this coin right now.
That is, like I said, I love the fact that, I'm going to just say this, when his camera comes back on, because I'm gonna say it to him. I would say, like, when I talk about divine alignment, the alignment that I share with Dom is we are hitting things once again in uncharted territory. I've never heard people have this type of experience and be able to show what happens, what ingredients are involved when it comes to awakening and spiritual awakening. You get what I'm saying? It's just like, what are the chances? I don't believe in coincidence, of course, but what are the chances that you align with a person who gets it to the same magnitude that you get it, but had a very similar background to say, wow, that's why. In those moments of asking why is this person doing this? Why is he acting like this? Why is he treating me like this? I don't deserve this. Guess what? I didn't believe I didn't deserve it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there. Mm-hmm. So that's an awakening moment for myself. If you really don't deserve this, why are you allowing yourself to deserve this? If you really want him to see, or them to see, how wonderful, amazing, and great, and all those things, why are you putting all of that on his plate, in his basket? It's yours. Mm-hmm. These are things that we find out about ourselves after, when we do start looking at ourselves in the mirror. When you say, why can't he see how lovable I am? Why can't he see this? Well, do you see it? No. So that's the work that we have. Huh?
You said, do you see it?
Do you see it? No, you don't. Now, here's my thing. I didn't come from an abusive background. I came from two parents who I only saw have arguments but never fights. That's normal. Disagreements. But they always came to a healthy resolve. Okay? They always figured out how to get back to home base together. I grew up with siblings who would fight one another. There's the difference. Everybody had their own something that they were dealing with. Never the parents, but it was us, and then it was us with the parent. So either it was me and mom getting into it, me and dad getting into it, or the brothers, and so on and so forth. However, the dynamic, it was never something that I witnessed through my parents. So it's weird for me because when you see your mother being abused, you think sometimes that's normal. To me being abused became something normal. Out of the blue. It was weird.
Why?
Insecurity. Well, I can go down the list. Insecurity. I had abandonment issues, rejection issues, afraid of the betrayal, all the things, all the emotions.
You love the person that you were with.
I love the person that pretended to be the person I was initially.
Right.
My situation is a little different, of course, because he was narcissistic. So he was one way, and then the real him came out down the line. And when the veil gets lifted, that's when the violence started. Because now I see you. Me, I'm trying to bring that person back, but I had to learn that person didn't exist in the first place.
Wow, bars.
That person was a facade. And in those moments, you think, am I going crazy?
I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. I really don't mean to interrupt you. Can you say that again?
The whole part? The person that I initially fell in love with never really existed.
And you were trying to bring somebody back that didn't exist.
That wasn't real.
And that's a cheat code for anybody. Like that's a t-shirt tattooed on your neck. Like that's a cheat code, what she just said.
Yeah.
Who you think exists is not there.
When you deal with a narcissist, and empaths typically attract narcissists, I did not know what that was. Right. I had never heard of it. No. I just knew that this person was loving me, was giving me attention, was saying all the right things, was doing the romance, was doing all the love, what we now consider love bombing. But what I wasn't paying attention to, or let's be clear, I saw it, I just allowed it to continue. The small little things that, small little tally, maybe 3 months down the line, another tally, 6 weeks down the line, another tally. And then the math starts mathing. It starts adding up. You're like, okay, no, this is who this person really is. They can pretend, but for so long. And when you reach that point where you are now a challenge to them, that the only way that they can fight you back is to literally fight you back. Now, we're also talking about someone who, and I'm 5'6". And in my 20s, I was a little tinier, okay? Maybe 125 pounds. This person was 6'5". 240, 230 easy. The first time I ever was harmed by him, he literally had me by the throat and my feet were dangling on the ground. And I said, this person is going to take me out. I'm undefeated. That was the initial breaking of someone who was already deep down broken, but didn't know she was broken. Breaking down that much more, breaking down even more. And what this individual would do after the damage has been done, and you've broken me down so much, now I have to love you over again. I have to pour more love into you to say, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I'll never do it again. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. I'm broken, you're broken. We'll be broken together. You begin to justify the brokenness. You begin to accept it as, okay, we can fix it. That's on this end. On this end, you want to fix it, but are you going to really do the work? Are you really going to do it? Both of you believe this in these moments. You believe it until, once again, that brokenness resurfaces. That brokenness is triggered. And that brokenness has no other action, no other recourse but to take action. And boom, here we are again. It's a cycle. It doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every week. It's not every month. It may be 6 months, 9 months, a year. But it's still there in the relationship with you. Unless there is actual healing that takes place. Unless there is actual internal transformation that happens. Rather than sweep it under the rug.
Which oftentimes cannot happen in the presence for someone on the abusive side of things. It cannot happen while he or she is there. No. You cannot heal. It just can't. So that's why when they talk about leaving these circumstances is important. Dawn mentioned, she said it was a cycle. The concept is called the cycle of violence. And for anyone that doesn't know it, look it up, type in the cycle of violence, and you will see it literally is a cycle. The cycle is characterized by tension building. Tension building is when things are going well, but then the abuser gets in whatever mode they're in, their mood. You know, the victim is walking on eggshells and afraid of everything, and then the abuser just blows up over something. Oh, you didn't cook this right, or this happened, or their jealousy rate, or whatever it is. And then the explosion happens, as Dawn was talking about. So that explosion happens, and then right after the explosion, it comes the honeymoon phase. So you got tension building, you have explosion, and then you have honeymoon. And then guess what? So in honeymoon, that's where, oh, I'm sorry, this will never come back. And I've said that myself. And there's like, and in the moment, you're like, yeah, I really didn't mean to do that. It's like, okay, all right, let's sweep this under the rug. Let's move on from this because we love each other, right? Because, possession is a big thing for abusive people. So people that are abusive, men and women, they want to possess their victims. They want to own that victim. And so they'll try to do everything in their power to keep the victim with them while still harming them. And it is the ultimate mind, trick, because it's like you harm me, but then you don't want me to leave and you keep harming me. And so it's almost like it's this sick game, and the victim's trying to figure out, because there's moments where, oh, love is there. It's like, oh, okay, this person does love me. And then you'll see that toxic cycle come back, and then the person just keeps saying the same thing until. And listen, I want to say this, when Dawn was saying this, she said, the person never existed. No one out here, somebody in the comments said that we're good at building men, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like this thing that you have where you could say, I can love this person out of this, or I can fix them. I don't want to say delusion, but I don't know what to call it, but it's, I can fix it. No.
You can say delusion. It's delusional.
Okay, you can't fix you, because if you fix you, you wouldn't be in that circumstance. Like, so that part is like, we have to fix ourselves. Our job is always to go inward. And so my spouse was trying to fix me. She thought that, and it was like, and then I was like, oh, bless your heart. You try, and I didn't know any better. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like, whatever, let's just we'll figure it out. That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, that cycle kept going. Mm-hmm. And every time there was an explosion, there's honeymoon. Yep. Like, all right, okay, yeah, I'll go to the office and see the lady. I'll talk to them and try to figure out. I ain't seeing nobody, because I'm not trying to expose myself. If I have to go see somebody, I have to tell them that I'm abusive. And you understand the tremendous amount of shame that abusers are in, because you don't want nobody to know. Because if they actually found out who you really were, then the whole jig is up at that point. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that what Dawn was talking about is the cycle of violence. And for anybody that doesn't know, Type in cycle of violence look it up, Google, type it in, matter of fact, type it in Chat GPT. What is the cycle of violence? It will
Yeah.
give you a whole diagram of the cycle of violence. The last thing I want to say is that the love piece is what keeps us there. It's like the love, the attachment, whatever it is, whatever you want to call, whatever the attachment that keeps a person there, it ain't worth it. It's never going to work. It's not enough. Because the change is not for the victim to make, the change is for the abuser to make.
And the changes within the victim. Because
So I mean, to stop the violence is what I mean.
yeah, oh yeah, for that. Yeah, because it has to be changed on both sides. But you said the key word in there as to why a lot of these dynamics never change, and it's shame. Shame is the word that sits at the top of the totem pole, because nobody knew any of this was happening in my world. My mother and father didn't know, because if daddy would have known, he'd have been gone. Okay. None of my friends knew. No one at work. Nope. Nobody knew a thing, because that shame causes you to hide, not just on as Dom said on his end. I'm not saying it because I'm not going to expose myself and what's going on within me that most people would say is toxic, or and as the victim, you're not going to share that, because now, oh my gosh, you're going to think I'm weak. You're going to think I'm stupid. You're going to think all the things that this person says to you. You're now saying everybody else is going to say that, because there's things about you that believe that. You believe, yes, I'm stupid for being in this. This is silly. This is not, it doesn't make any sense. I'm ashamed to tell people I'm being harmed. I'm scared that nobody's going to believe me also. And I'm ashamed that this is who I picked to be with. I'm ashamed of it. And I'm trying to, all this love that I'm trying to give to this person, all this trying to do the right thing. And like you say, you get judged on everything. I got triggers when I'm cooking, because like you said, you didn't make this right. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that. Well, how come this isn't this, and so on and so forth. And you literally have this running in your head, and you're striving to be perfect, so this person does not flip on you and do that thing again. But you're not realizing that thing is in them. It's theirs. They got it regardless, whether you just the person of the moment. You just the one that's here right now. They're going to take that somewhere else, and to another place, and keep going, because that's who they are. And when you realize who they are, there's nothing that you can do about it. That's that moment of snap. I give up. Once you give up, things start changing. That's when they start feeling, wait a minute, they're not giving me that energy back. They're not giving me that push and push pull. They're not fussing at me when I do something that they don't like. Like my ex would take my car and be gone like all day. And it would be rendezvousing. It would be going to, be with his boys. My car would smell like he been like a dispensary itself. It was just a lack of consideration, right? Total disrespect. I have other women in my car, to the point where it's just like, okay, you're showing me you don't care. So I'm going to have to show you that I don't care. Do what you do. Oh, I'm not getting that thing. No, because there's nothing I can do to fight you. You're already fighting yourself. When you get to that point of understanding that's something that's going on with him and his little demon, or her and her little demon, hands off. That is you beginning to win. You're beginning to win this war, but you're also beginning to win you back. You're beginning to reclaim yourself. When they say, I reclaim my power, that is reclaiming your power. And the more and more you reclaim your power, here's the thing. The more and more they're not going to like it. And they're going to keep doing things. They're going to keep trying you. They're going to keep pushing you because something within them needs that fight, because they can't contain it in here too long. And that comes from being insecure. That comes from not being where you want to be in life. That's not liking anything about your life. You may love me, but that's not the kind of love that's healthy. You have an idea of love, but that's not real love. You love the fact that I'm here. You love the fact that I tolerate this. You love the fact that you can use me to make yourself feel better with your words and with your actions and with your violence. You love that about me. You love the fact that I don't stand up against you and can actually win. That's what you love. But when I can stand up against you and actually win, then you don't like me anymore.
That's the power and control. You know, what Dawn is talking about is there's a dynamic in abuse, in the world of abuse, is called power and control. That's another one. Chat GPT that. Look up power and control dynamic. And so in the abusive relationships, what Dawn's talking about, the narcissism, power and control is a standard procedure. And that's what, so the abuser loves power and control. They don't love the victim. Okay, they love power and control. They love the power that they have. That's why one of the most dangerous times in domestic violence is when the victim leaves. People be like, why don't you just leave? All you have to do is just leave. All you have to do is just leave. And people don't understand. That's where all the unalivings happen. The unalivings happen when someone tries to leave, because that's when the power and control dynamic is ripped from the abuser, and then they don't know what to do with that. So they do everything in their power to try to get that person back. If they can't get that person back, then they have that sick mentality of, if I can't have you, no one can. That whole garbage but the dynamic is called power and control. And so Dawn mentioned this other thing too I wanted to say, is that I'm always curious about people's definition of love, because it's just like, you know, everyone has an opinion about the weather. People have very wide different variations of love. Like, so love to you looks like control. It looks like possession. It looks like toxicity. It looks like me tolerating, or you tolerating, you know, chaos or cheating. Or so people's definition of love, especially someone that's abusive or narcissistic, we need to know that. And I always say this too. I hate to say it like this, man, but I always have a parachute if I need one. Meaning that, and I always give that to people, like, man, there is no relationship on this planet, none, ain't nobody worth being abused, cheated on, and mistreated, nobody. So the trick is that, and I always say this, there's always these videos on social media talking about, you know, how to avoid getting into a toxic or abusive relationship. But not enough is talked about once you are in it. Once you are in it and you locked in, you married the person, you got kids with the person, you love the person, that's when the rubber meets the road. You got to be able to even say, then I'm out of here. There should be nothing that will stop you. If someone is mistreating you, you have to be there. Nothing. And that takes a different level, a different mindset. But those are the people who refuse to be abused. Think about that. There are people that, you know, there was a point where Don was talking about, she refused to be abused again. Like, all right, I'm done. That place is what, and I want, if I could package that and sell it, like, take that pill. You need to take that refuse to be abused pill. Pop your pill and then roll up, because this person is not going to change. No matter what you do, they're not going to change. Yeah.
You have to, and for my case and so many others, you have to learn how to build that muscle. You have to literally learn how to build that muscle, and that muscle stems from, or that wound, that rejection wound stems from being rejected in past relationships, parents. I mean, realistically, how are narcissists born? They're born from feeling rejected. They're born from feeling neglected. They're born from feeling not included or not enough, not special, right? So they're constantly looking for someone to fill them up in the spaces and places in which they don't know how to fill themselves up. They're looking for the attention. They gotta, one of the things my ex used to say was, he would always ask me, he's like, you love me and all these things, just to get me to affirm him all the time. So in the process of me affirming you, you're breaking me down. You're literally shaming me, or, telling me what I'm not doing right, or, comparing me to other women to try to lower my self-esteem. That's more of the breaking. That is abuse without the physical. That is still DV. That is still a part of the process without it having to like Dom said, that's part of the cycle. It hasn't gotten to that physical point yet, but it has gotten to the psychological as well as the emotional. There are no mods, they said. Okay. I don't think we need mods. Why do we need mods in this instance? But it does take a lot of practice. And just like you said before, there is no smart way to just leave fast. You have to leave slowly. You have to leave correctly. You have to leave strategically, because it's like a dog. If you don't feed your dog is going to follow you until you feed it. If you don't feed the dog, after a while, the dog will start to whine, complain, possibly get aggressive. The dog needs to eat. That's what you do with your pet. You feed it. Your abuser is just like that dog. It has to feed. It's like a vampire. It has to feed. If you don't feed it, it's going to follow you. It's going to come after you because it needs that power. It needs that energy. It needs that attention from you. It needs to now put you back in your place, in its grips. It needs to show you don't have the power. I have the power. So if you don't move correctly away from that space, you're going to constantly be in that cycle. You're going to constantly be in it. And only you can come up with that strategy, because only you know that person on that level. You know how they sleep. You know how they eat. You know where they go. You know who their friends are. You know how they move. So you're the one that has to come up with that exit strategy and come out as a victor and no longer a victim. So are they going to like it? No, they're not. Sometimes you might have to get the law involved. But when you get the law involved, you got to be sure. You got to mean it. You got to not go back because, they've changed. They love me. We could try again. No. Once it happened once, it's going to happen again.
There are, to Dawn's point, there are, if you can get law enforcement involved, you can also get, but let's say there's no physical abuse in this incident. Let's say you go to law enforcement. Law enforcement needs a physical, they need to be able to see there's something physical that happened. So people will go to law enforcement, like, well, hey, I'm being abused. And they're like, well, where's the marks or bruises? If you don't have any marks or bruises, anything on you at that moment, they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. It's just your word. So, and I always tell people that what you can do is you can find a local domestic violence agency that has victim advocates. Everybody, the word victim advocates, that's our word for the day, victim advocates, okay? So victim advocate is going to be the one to help you come up with a plan to make your exit. You don't want to just be wilding out and be like, I'm just going to my mama's house. He or she know where your mama lives, okay? They know where your mom lives. So that ain't nothing. Now you're gonna have your mom getting harmed too. So I always say, take your time and listen. I work with victim advocates, man. I call them victim angels because they are phenomenal at what they do. They know how to text you without the abuser knowing. They send emails. They will not. They'll be like, hey, here's a pamphlet, but don't take it home. I want you to keep it at your friend's house. We'll call your friend. They come up with all kinds of strategic ways to communicate with the victims and to let them know that they are there to help them. If the victim says they want to stay, they're going to help them stay safely. If the victim says they want to leave, they're going to try to help them figure out a way to get to a shelter or to leave or do whatever they need to do. So if someone is in a circumstance like that, or if you know someone that's like that, encourage them either to, if there's an active incident, yeah, go to law enforcement. But there are plenty of domestic abuse organizations that have victim advocates who are, again, they go to court with the victim. They help them get restraining orders. They help them find housing. They are, like I said, I call them victim angels. They ain't no joke. They do, and they spend countless hours. They become the voice. They help the victims develop the voice, because you have to understand, in a domestic abuse relationship, the victim's voice has been reduced to zero. The abuser is like, no, ain't nobody listening to you. We don't care about you. You stupid. You nothing. Don't nobody care. So they start to believe that, and so now people are saying, hey, what happened? And you're like, well, I don't really know. And the victim advocate will help them develop that voice. Because again, I want to say this again: the most dangerous time for a victim is when they leave that abusive relationship. Okay, when they leave that relationship, that is when the abusers usually will lose it. All right, so it's something that has to be done strategically. It has to be done with a plan. It can't. And I even said this too. There's sometimes where you might even have to move jobs. It's that serious. Like, it's that serious, because it's like, no, I don't work, because they know where you work. They know where your kids go to school. They know all of that. And I don't put anything past someone who is in that abusive mindset. I don't put nothing past them. I don't put nothing past. I mean, I know my own stuff. I didn't go to them lengths, but I also know the people that I work with and the offenders that I work with. I know the story, and I wouldn't put nothing past them. We've seen many unalivings when we didn't think that was going to happen. And wait, what? It happened on the freeway in the middle of rush hour traffic? What? And the victim was driving, by herself, and the person found her, caught up with her on the freeway, and jumped out and did what they did. What? So it's you want to get where the bottom line is. Make sure you have a victim advocate to help you if you are in that circumstance. Mm-hmm. If you don't have law enforcement, the law enforcement is going to ask for, did a crime happen today? That's what they're going to ask. Or did it happen yesterday? You got marks and bruises on you? Okay, you can show that, and then we can build a case. Because they're all looking to be able to build a case in court. If they can't build a case in court, they're not going to charge it. The district attorney will take it and drop the case if they look at it and it's just like you just saying stuff. Like, oh, well, this person did this, and no, the jury's not going to convict off of that. The district attorney is looking at that. Now, if they have evidence, they have marks, bruises, recordings, they have all of this stuff that is recorded, it'll be a lot easier for them to pick up the case. So sometimes people get frustrated with the law, like, you guys not doing anything. Well, you got to give them something with some meat on it for them to act. But if you can't go the law route, go the victim advocate route, and then either way, take one of those routes.
Yeah, as close as possible to catching them in the act. That's how close it has to be. It has to literally be evidence, not just hearsay. Yeah. Not just hearsay. And you have to, like you said, you have to be strategic about it. If you are faced with law enforcement and they're coming to you saying, hey, is this person hurting you? Either you're ready to go or not, if you're still protecting them, if you're still covering for them, if you're saying we can figure this out, we can work this out. Once the law is involved in those situations, it's pretty much over. The relationship is not going to be a fairy tale. It's not going to be anything of any beauty. Okay? People can change, people can evolve, but that relationship is already, it's like a glass vase. It's already shattered. And you guys are going to slowly try to put the pieces back.
Dawn, I'll say this. As someone that was in that boat, ain't no way in hell I was changing in that relationship. Let me just keep it real. And I ain't changing shit. I ain't doing nothing. You know what? Because again, in order to change the level, you know how much it took me years to change, years. And that's outside of the relationship. Like I had to be focused on me and focused on my issues. I couldn't be in a relationship where I could blame her and say it's all her fault. No, I had to just be there and face me. So the change that we're talking about for a lot of people, and I always say this in relationship, like the change that needs to happen for some of these issues is going to be minimum 3 years, minimum. And then there's still no guarantee if the person is going and they're making that change as a hostage. Did they initiate that change because they want to, or they're doing it to satisfy you? You know, so in the change that I made, for me, it was just like, look, man, I already know my relationship's done and over, but I know I'm a POS. I know I ain't a good person. Something is wrong with me and I need to fix this. I don't even care about the relationship. I need to figure out what the hell is wrong with me. If they don't have that attitude, you know, because a lot of people just doing it like, oh, I'll do it because it saves my relationship. But man, there should be an internal motivation. And in my speaking of spiritual awakening, this was the awakening point for me. It was a spiritual awakening for me. And in that awakening, like I awakened to myself in it, and there was this intense desire to be a better human being. Because I remember getting the download and saying, like, we can't use you if you keep doing this. And I remember, I'll never forget that moment. I was like, and it was after my wife had left me, and I was like, damn, man, what am I going to do? And it was like, you have to switch and you got to change. And I remember I stopped cold turkey at that moment. I was like, all right. And then I stopped cold turkey first, and then I went through the process of counseling, understanding, and figuring out, why was I acting this way? What's wrong with me? What the hell is wrong with me? You know, so this process, listen, trust me when I tell you, they are not going to change as long as you're still sitting there. You still sitting there, and listen, when you get to the other levels, like Dawn's talking about, the narcissistic levels, they will say things like this. They will say, well, if it was so bad, you wouldn't have stayed. Think about how sick that is. That's what they'll say. Toxic people, narcissistic people, abusers will say, if it was so bad, why did you stay?
Oh, they say some of the coldest stuff.
I'm telling you, I'm trying to tell you, like, you talking about it was all bad, it was this or that. Well, it must not have been that bad because you stayed for umpteen years. And then it was like, damn, what? I'm staying because I was trying to work this relationship out. Because you kept promising me that you was going to change, and we have a family. That's why I'm staying. But they will never acknowledge that because they have to put up a facade to justify their behavior. And so you have to be wrong all the time. You have to be the crazy one. You have to be this. But there is no, I am a huge proponent of the separation. I'm telling you right now, when this stuff happened, go. You need to go in your corner. Yeah, because now here's what happens too. And I'll say this and land the plane: is that once the abuser gets back into the circle with the victim, they'll start the coercion part. There's another concept called coercive control. Coercive control, and what that is that the abuser starts talking to the victim and saying, "Well, look, it's not really that big of a problem." Let's say law enforcement got involved. You know what they're going to tell the victim? Don't press charges. Because if you press charges, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, we ain't going to have no place to stay. If we ain't going to have no place to stay, you know what's going to happen to your kids. They got to go back with your mom. You know what happened when you was at your mom's house. It's going to happen to your kid. And then the victim's just like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not doing this. I'm not. You have to understand that. So it's called coercive control. When they are with that victim, they're going to get that victim to. Now, you got to understand, they've been controlling the victim the whole time. It ain't nothing to them. It's nothing to them. So when they get in the space with them, they're going to go right back to their Jedi mind tricks, and then they know how to get that person to do what they want them to do.
Yeah.
So that's why the separation period is important. It's very important. It needs to be separation. So let that victim decide whatever he or she wants, and then let the abuser stay on this side, because it's hard to change these people when they don't want to change. I'm sorry for talking long, but
no, you're good. This is valuable. You guys go ahead, tap that screen, share the live, get this information out. because
What's
once
in the
again,
comments?
it is
Who?
DV Awareness Month, and you are looking at two people who have experienced it and have grown through them and ascended through them, and we are advocates for DV awareness, and it changed us for the better to do this work to help people become greater, because at the root of it, it is because people are out of spiritual alignment. They're out of alignment with their true selves. Because that behavior, that mentality, that way of being is totally not what the assignment is for life at all. You talked about the separation. The separation is absolutely, absolutely critical, because even if the abusive party does not want to change, doesn't want to shift, the victim needs to take full advantage of the separation, because in those moments they can begin to feel safety. They don't feel safety when they're with their person. Okay? They can begin to start feeling the feeling of safety. Not like, okay, they're gone. No, you're always looking over your shoulder. You're always thinking they're watching. You're always thinking they're going to see you do something. Maybe it could be a misunderstanding. They'll take it out of context, and here we go again. You're always going to be like that until you get to a place in space and say, no, I'm more empowered, and they're not going to have the power over me anymore. And that does occur within the separation. It gives you a breathing space. It gives you a moment to be able to educate yourself, find your resources, have some peace for the first time, if at all. And it allows you to think clearer about what you need to do. Mine was, I got to do something to get more income, because this person is holding money over my head, not like he had it. It was my money that was being taken. So therefore, not only was it physical, emotional, mental, it was financial, because I can't make the moves that I need to make for me and my son, because this person is controlling like, I wake up, my debit card's gone. Car's gone. It's gone. You know, I had to get to a point where I'm hiding things in my own house. And then if it's hidden and they know it's hidden, now here's another explosion about where's your stuff? I need it. All these reasons, right? So that's more of the cycle. When you do separate, you get to think clearer. You get to figure out what needs to be done. My thing was, I can't have my mail sent to that house anymore. Let me go get a P.O. box. Let me have all of my financial things changed over. Let me go get a different bank account and start putting money in there. A little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. So therefore, I'm not losing everything, but I'm building. As I'm going out here making more income, figuring out how to become financially stronger, so I can disappear from this person, so they can't find out where I've gone. No, I'm not going to be working at that same job once I leave. No, I'm not going to be living at that same residence. No, my kid is not going to that same school. No, I'm not going to frequent the places that I usually go to. Nothing is going to be the same. Everything has to shift. Everything has to change as you change. That was literally the beginning of understanding transformation, because that version of you lived there, did those things, had those things, was in that relationship. But the new version that I'm creating, that I'm building, that I'm manifesting, she lives over there. She works there. She has this. She's free of all of this. That's the physical. That's what takes place in that separation. It gives you an opportunity to build, create, grow, breathe, heal. It gives you an opportunity to visualize what your life is like without this human being hovering over you, stifling, cutting you at the knees, all of those things. And when I say separation doesn't necessarily have to be in the beginning, in the very beginning, while you're creating your exit strategy. It doesn't have to be, you completely live in separate locations. It could be, I go to the park for hours just to be away from them, just to have that space. And I make sure you know your person, you know who how that person functions and what would tick them off. Stay under the radar as best you can while you're working with the advocate. These are things that they would say to you. But give yourself that time to not sit in the shit, but learn how to stand up and get out of it within that time away from them. That's when your exit strategy is being built without them even becoming aware of it. They can they if they got tabs on you all day, all night because they don't trust you, they don't want you to run away. They're possessive. They're control freaks. Let them have your location. I'm at the park with the kids. They're just playing, but at that same time, you're simultaneously figuring out what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation. There's ways. There's ways. You're on mute still.
The victim advocate will help you with those ways, because what Dawn's talking about, that's completely true. Before you leave, this is actually what the process looks like before you leave. Like, you start doing these things, and the victim advocate will help you to figure out, okay, what do I do? How do I do it? And, you know, leaving the environment is really important. But like, if you go in with like and you start working with an advocate, and let's say you say give them the location. So if you give the location, a lot of the victims, so the abuser typically would have the phone. They have the phone under their name. So they know all the activity. They know who you're texting, who you're not texting. They know all the activity. So it's important to understand and know that sometimes there might need to be another phone, and the victim advocate will help them with that. Like, we got to get you a burner phone so that you could, this is where you call the hotline or where you need it. There's so many strategic things that need to happen. But also want to talk about this too, this part, like, I want to say, like, there are different types of abuse. When we think of abuse, we only think of physical. Physical is the last part of it. That's the last part. The most, the type of abuse that's happening is verbal and emotional. It's emotional. That is the biggest part, is emotional. That's the stuff that happens daily. You know, it's almost like, what Dawn says, it may be 6 months between physical incidents, but within those 6 months, there's emotional, there's verbal, there's financial. The financial is when the abuser is controlling the finances and tells the victim, hey, you can't use this, you can't, all the money has to go through me. There's spiritual abuse. Y'all heard of that? The spiritual abuse, scriptures. I mean, you can have scriptures. I'm gonna tell you, I had scriptures, man. I'm like, oh, the Bible says you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. There is, and listen, and I want to say this part, in religious places, religious organizations typically are places that will just say, hey, we'll pray this away. That's not how this works. It don't work that way. You can pray all day, but you better be going and taking your steps, like Don was saying. So we've had a faith-based initiative out here in San Diego where we met with the faith-based leaders that had to prep them on what domestic abuse looks like. And so they keep saying, oh, we just need to keep the family together no matter what. No. This is not one of those scenarios where you keep the family together. There needs to be separation, because we're talking about safety. We're talking about safety, which in the world of domestic abuse, safety is number one. That is the most important piece of it. Safety, safety, safety. It ain't about the family staying together. Now, when the family separate, the abuser typically will be like, well, I want my family back. You doing it? And like, nah, no. The safety of the victim is the most important piece. But this whole concept of, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, or I can't say that word, sexual, whatever you want, however you say it on TikTok, whatever that word is in there, financial and spiritual, all of those. And then here's the other part. Now we have the stalking, the cyber stalking. The cyber stalking is not where, remember back in the day when people jump out the bushes, I'm stalking you. That's not what it is no more. All right. I mean, that still happens too, but now it is stalking your phone, putting an air tracker on your car, putting air trackers on. Oh, let me give you an example. There was a victim that came to a shelter. All right. She came to a shelter and she had her baby. And then she had to leave that shelter because the abuser found the shelter. And the people were like, did you talk to the person? Did you tell them? And she was like, no, I didn't. So she went to another shelter. He found that one. And then they went in on her saying, you must be talking to him, telling them. But she wasn't telling them. He put a air tracker in her diaper bag. Put an air tracker in the diaper bag. So he sold it in there. So I'm telling you, this stuff gets diabolical. It gets diabolical. It's no joke. So that's when we talk about you have to have help, because the level of energy that you are dealing with is really dark. It's a dark, dark energy that you're dealing with, and it's you think in your little plan, you're like, I'm smart. I mean, you probably are. I'm not saying nobody, but you know what? Let professionals help you to move from these circumstances, because it ain't no joke.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very dark to the point where you can see it. You can feel it when they call on your phone and you get that anxiety, or when they're coming home and as soon as they walk through the door, that's dark. That's not bliss. That's not happy. If you are in that space, that should be your indicator. This is not what God has for me, the divine universe, whatever. It's not how this is supposed to go. And when you keep saying yes to it, yes, I'll accept it. Yes, I'll be here. Yes, I'll keep condoning it. That is more of your light that's getting sucked out, more of the darkness that they are injecting into you. They're pouring it into you because they want you to meet them at that level. Like I said, it's two sides to the same coin. That person needs you to give them all of your energy, all of your light, all of your love, because they don't have it within them. And the more you say yes, the more you give it to them, and the more you start flipping roles. The healing has to take place. Once again, separate. Find those moments, find that assistance, find that help. The fear is what stops us. The fear of what they're going to do, but also the fear of what everybody else is going to think, what everybody else is going to say. That's the shame. You're terrified of it. You have no idea what life is going to look like once everybody knows. Once it's been exposed, the judgment, all of that is why a lot of people don't. And also added to the formula, you think you can love them more. If the love you've given them thus far hasn't worked, what would more love do? Nothing. You
Platinum
just
love.
give that love to yourself. And it starts by getting out of that strategically, cautiously, carefully, correctly. And if you don't know what to do, find something, find some way, Google it. It's there. Now we have the advantage. Now we have the choice. If you want to get out that bad, you are willing to do anything. You are willing to relocate the state, the country, whatever. You have to save yourself. We're in 2025 and beyond, baby. It's about self-preservation. And that self-preservation is spiritual at this point. You have to save you. That is what I had to learn. I no longer ask why it happened. I no longer ask how did I get myself into that. You gotta everything that you're trying to give them, give to you. I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't accepting myself. I was judging myself. I wasn't being kind to myself. I wasn't giving myself all that I should have been giving myself. I had to learn how to do that through that chapter. And it was a culmination of things that I had been, it's kind of like that snowball. It started off small, and this is the grand finale. This is it. Because after that, once you become a victor, no longer a victim, you get to decide whether or not someone has the ability to do anything like that, remotely close to it, or identical. You get to decide that, how long you're going to be in that victim space. And there's a lot of people that never take themselves out of the victim space. They never do. And being a victim is, let me just say this. Every human being on this planet is going to be a victim of something. Okay? Nobody gets to avoid it. Everybody will suffer through something, from something, and have an experience that is less than desirable. Okay? It is part of your life purpose to triumph over that, to grow through it, to become the version of yourself that you're meant to become, to remember who you are through that struggle. That's life. So many of us stay in that victim mode, that victim mentality, that victim energy. And that is where we meet people like that. That is where it's a whole group. It's a party. It's a whole convention. And somewhere in there we meet up with people. And sometimes it's our family, sometimes it's our friends, sometimes it's our partner, our lover. Sometimes it's those people we work with. But you get to decide how long you stay in that convention, you stay in that pool with people who are on that low frequency, who are in that darkness, in that victim mentality. And when you decide to heal yourself, once again, you got to separate. That means you don't have conversations with them that are deep. It could be shallow if you have to interact. You don't engage with them the same. You don't hang out with them. You don't do the things that they do because you're trying to create a shift within yourself. Leave them there. I'm going to put this in bold print. There is nothing you can do to change them. All change is for you. It's for you. So being worried and concerned and stressed and scared about losing people, lose them. You're making space for new ones.
If you lose them and find you, that's a win. Like that's a win. That is a win. I mean, because there's nothing worse than losing yourself. You know, somebody in the comments said that, you know, I'm still struggling some years later. You know, when Dawn's talking about the separation period, when we talk about healing, time does not heal all wounds. I'm sorry. Intentional work on that wound is what heals that wound. So it has to be intentional. So I hear people when I remember doing a lot of lives and people, you know, anybody that says to me, you've been in an abusive relationship or you've been with a narcissist, my next question is, well, how much counseling therapy have you done? How much work have you done? Because if you're talking about them and you're not talking about I got that part. How much healing? Because you can't be around that dark negative energy without intentional healing. Intentional, all right? Intentional. That means you are going someplace, talking to, there's a level of accountability. That means we're speaking to, you know, the level of awareness is going to rise because I'm going to be learning about myself, how I got into this position in the first place. What about my childhood? What about, you know, my adult or high school life? What about the traumas that I'm carrying in my life that led me to be in this circumstance in the first place? So you have to go through a journey of self-discovery and understanding how you got there and then making sure you never get there again. And that is the only way that happens because they're going to come back around. People always like to say, oh, I attract to it. I mean, you're going to attract light and dark. It's who you entertain. Who you entertain. I know it sounds good to say I'm going to attract good. You're going to attract bees and flies. Which one are you entertaining? Now, when we are in that space of mind where our trauma is ruling us, we are going to entertain the lower vibration. But when you get to a place of growing and healing, you will not entertain it. It will come to your door and knock. You say, no, thank you. Have a good day. You don't entertain it no more. And so that's so the separation is step one. And then the healing comes. And that healing can take years. I've done counseling and did a lot of work. I was in that situation for 26 years. Oh, God, thank goodness you ain't there no more. And that's definitely going to take some work. You know, it takes some work for 26 years of trauma. And then now you're free from that. And it could be 10 years. It could be 5. It don't matter what it is. There needs to be a period of separation and then active healing. And so some people just be like, oh, you know, I'm lighting candles. That's cool. But I'm gonna need you to we need to get to that next step because just like I talked about, there are victim advocates. There's also therapists and counselors and coaches who specialize in this. So they can help you figure out, hey, because there's blind spots that we don't even know about. We have blind spots in our life that we don't know. And the more you go through the healing journey, you can recognize those blind spots. And once you recognize them, that's power. That's power. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that I was acting this way because of a father wound or a mother wound or some trauma that I had. So the healing part during that separation is very, very necessary.
Yes, and Heavenly Sent, I'm actually launching a group class soon. It's called Bruised Not Broken Breakthrough Sessions. And I have a signature framework. It's the Healing Mastery Method. And it identifies your emotional wounds and how to, my favorite word when I talk about healing is practice. How do you practice your healing? What are the things that you do to practice yourself into a new way? Because you had to practice being in those wounded spaces. You practice the victimhood, meaning the situations and the circumstances kept repeating, and kept going. So now we're doing the reversal. We're creating new practices. We're creating new mindsets, new actions to take so that we're no longer a victim, but once again become a victor. Okay? And that's the thing. What are you practicing? 26 years. Yes, that's a lot of deep wounding. Get to that root and begin practicing how to come out of that phase, how to come out of those stages. That's why most people stay stuck. They don't know how to pull themselves out of that on a daily basis. It's just not once a week when you see a therapist. It's just not once a week when you go to counseling and group therapy and all that. It's not once a week. It's every day, all day. You are a full-time job project. There is no days off, no hours off. It's about being intentional, paying attention to what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're doing, the stories you keep telling yourself. One of the biggest parts about healing is creating a new narrative for yourself. That story, that's how come Dom and I can sit here and we can tell our stories about trauma and abuse and all the things. We no longer hold shame about it. We no longer hold on to it as an identity. It's a part of the story that built us into the people that we were. So now we've won that war. We won that war. We won those battles. We may have lost a few, but we won the ones that mattered. And in order to do that, we had to practice. We had to first surrender and come up with a new strategy and then practice the things as we keep growing. We're still practicing them. We still get triggered all the time by certain things. We still can go back into those victim modes and those victim mentalities at any second. But we now have the stamina, the muscle memory to build ourselves back out of that when we feel it coming on. Because once you reach a space of self-acknowledgement, self-understanding, and self-awareness, you know what it feels like when you're not in that space with yourself, not in that great space with yourself. And you, come hell or high water, are going to be back in that great space. No matter what situation, no matter what conversations, and no matter what experiences is taking place that are trying to pull you back into that negative BS. It's because we practice it over and it might take a couple years, like he said. It might take some years, but it's something that you intentionally do to make sure that this is who you become.
And one of the worst things that we can do after walking away is get on the apps and start dating again, trying to find somebody else. All right, trying to find someone. It's not about finding anybody else, it's about finding yourself. But I want to ask you this question. Linda said, what does it mean when you can't remember parts of your childhood? There's a concept, here's another concept, it's called repression. Repression is a defense mechanism that our brain will use when we don't want to remember certain things. It's an unconscious thing. All right, so if you've had a lot of childhood trauma or some issues in your childhood, repression will kick in. Those memories will go so far down that you don't remember them. Now, once you start going to counseling, do some EMDR therapy, and you start working through that stuff will come back. So a lot of times, it's not normal for us to not remember parts of our childhood. But if we can't remember, chances are a lot of times that's because of the trauma that's happened. So much trauma And then people will ask, well, how was your childhood? It was great. You know, it was great. It was like, and so, and the problem with that is that the trauma is still in there. It still makes decisions for you. It still chooses your relationships. It chooses your path in life. It's working behind the scenes, and so it hides. And so that's why I say, like, that's why I'm a huge proponent of people. You know, when I talk about going to counseling or therapy or coaching, it is a huge tool for awareness. When you become aware of you, oh my gosh, it's like I consider it going to the University of You. You are going to study you. You ain't studying psychology or biology or astrophysics. You studying you. You are the subject. Your life, how you got to be, your parents, their parents, the generational cycles in your life that you are continuing without even knowing. Like, there's so much knowledge. And for me, I consider it a privilege to study me. It's a privilege to study you. It's an honor to study you. It is an honor to, but man, we know more about our job descriptions than we know about ourselves as people. And that part should never be. You should know every ounce of you as much as you humanly can, so that you know the good things about you and the not so good things about you. You know the whole range, because we're human. There is no human who just has good things. You got some stuff. We all got some stuff. You got a pulse? Yeah, you alive? Yeah, you got some stuff. We all do. And so when you go to work on yourself, you learn the mechanisms in you that led you to the great places and to the not great places. So you want to know the full range of you. Now listen, when I used to play football when I was younger, we would go and study film. And when we study film, our coaches would highlight the things that we were doing wrong. Does that mean they didn't care about us? No, they're highlighting the things we're doing wrong so that we can get better. And then it's like, hey, you're messing up right here. Fix that so you can get better. So if you can look at the film of your life and you look at, where am I going wrong? Like, where am I? And I don't, it's not from a place of blame. It's just from a place of, why do I keep doing this? Some of us have had the same people, just different faces. Same people, just different faces. The same spirit, the same, and we just keep going. And then you know what we'll do? We'll be like, well, ain't nothing out here in the dating market. You
blame everybody else.
Yeah, you are you. But when you shift you, when you have that mental, emotional, spiritual awakening, when you shift you, everything else shifts. And I'm telling y'all from the perspective of somebody that's caused harm. I was that toxic. I'm telling you, when you shift, your whole world shifts. Everything shifts. And so that's why it's not so much about them. People often say, well, they need to change their behaviors. Narcissists typically don't change. I mean, just in general, some of them can change. But if you know anything about that disorder, and I don't know that everybody is a narcissist, but the ones that, if you're dealing with one of them, that's not going to happen.
It's not going anywhere.
It's like a dog saying, well, we're not going to have that dog be a dog anymore. No, it's a dog. That's what it is. It bites. It barks. That's what it does.
With or without the teeth.
Yeah, it's going to gum you. It's going to be gumming on you. It's going to be kicking you or something. But the point is that everything starts with the change from you. Anyone that has left a domestic abuse relationship, it changed when that victim got the courage or to move or to step away. Or in one of the cases, somebody said that person left. Thank goodness that person left. But I want you to develop a skill to where you can leave.
You got to be strong enough to leave. Otherwise, you're going to repeat it again.
I'm glad that person left. But heaven forbid, if another situation came, we need you to leave. Yeah. I need you to be like, we good. I'm done. I ain't doing this no more. Yeah. Because I'll land that plane in, because I know
you gotta build that up for yourself. If they left, then you didn't complete the cycle, and unfortunately, it is a strong possibility you will repeat it again. And the thing about it is will you be able to identify at this time and make the right choice for yourself, or are you going to repeat the pattern again? Because there's lessons in there, and don't get mad at yourself if it happens. I've done it too. There's lessons in there. There's things that are supposed to wake you up, shake you up, so you can show up as the better version of yourself. Okay? When it starts to not feel great, do not convince yourself that you can make it great. Don't do that. If they can't meet you where you are, that's not the one for you. And unfortunately, we can say this until we're orange and purple in the face. But it's just like when you tell a baby for the first time that something's hot, they don't comprehend it until they actually feel it. They have to actually experience it in order for it to click. You know, that's exactly what happens in a lot of these cases. And getting on that hamster wheel, and just like Dom just said, we meet the same people again and again, just with different faces, because we haven't finished that cycle. It hasn't been completed. We haven't learned the lesson. And until you go into it deliberately and intentionally and say, I'm going to get something out of this, let me ride it through. Let me be more aware of what steps I'm taking, what I'm saying, what I'm doing, how I'm responding, how I'm reacting. If you don't complete the cycle, it's going to circle back. Why wouldn't it? You're still on the hamster wheel. You haven't gotten off. When you are completing a cycle, you'll start slowing down. You won't be running as fast, losing your mind. You'll start slowing down. Then you'll start walking, and then you're going to stop. And finally, you're going to step off. I'll be like, nope, I'm good. That's over. Been there, done that. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just exhausting myself. I'm just exerting myself and not getting anything back. That's exactly what those hamsters and those mice do. They run, and get off, go get some water, and get right back on. Stay off. Don't go for that sip of water. Take a break. Don't get back on the hamster wheel. That's it. Learn a lesson. Ask for the lesson. That's the biggest question. That's the biggest thing. You said something before, and it triggered a thought in me. Most of healing is just answering some of the most simplest questions that you just don't consider when you're in the thick of whatever it is you're in the thick of. Asking yourself questions. Like I started asking, why am I here? How did I get here? What's happening? What's wrong with me? Why is this happening? Why are they doing this? Why am I doing this? When you start asking questions, stop looking for somebody to answer it for you. Start trying to answer it for yourself, because the answer is only going to come from within you. That's the divine speaking through you, giving you the answers to your issues, not anybody else's. Now, we can be inspired by other people. We can get suggestions from other people. We can get advice from other people, but the answers, the actual solution has to come from within you, because you are the one that got you in there.
And somebody said something. Where do you get help? I think Linda said this.
Linda said it.
Yeah, and I don't know where you are, but what your location is. But there are domestic abuse organizations, and we were talking about this earlier about getting help from victim advocates. And if you just Google this, just Google it. Like Google the domestic abuse, and it depends on what you need.
I think hers was more along the line of not remembering her repressed emotions and memories. So
and again, that's the whole, the whole, when you start going to counseling, you do some EMDR work, going to therapy, so they can help you trigger that, because there are people that specialize in that area. There are specialists that can help you do that, because again, those repressed memories, man, they gone until you go down the rabbit hole and you touch one thing, and then that thing is connected to that, and you never knew it was connected to that, so you never even thought about that. And one minute you're talking about Mike and Ike candy, and then you're like, oh, Mike and Ike candy. Oh shoot, I remember I had Mike and Ike candy that one day when I was a kid. This is what had happened. Joey was over there. Y'all remember Joey? And it just goes like that. But if you never ever dive into your old self, you will never know what that is. But this part is really the healing pieces. I cannot stress. Everybody needs it. The victim needs it. The abuser needs healing. People don't think about that, because think about how broken you have to be harming a person.
Yes.
Think about that. You are broken. You are even more broken, because in order to treat somebody that way, you have to really be a broken person. Yeah. And so, that process of healing is necessary for everybody. And listen, let me say this. The kids, Dawn mentioned her son. My kids were what you call collateral damage. Mm-hmm. And they didn't ask for this. They didn't ask to see toxic relationships. And how many times of us, everybody on here, all 18 of us, did you see something growing up you wasn't supposed to be seeing? Most of us have. A lot of us have seen that stuff. So we have to be aware of the kids. They need healing too. So just because we move on does not mean that kid has moved on. That trauma of watching that is still with them. It's still, they saw mom or dad being harmed. They saw it. They saw the, and then we're like, okay, we're moving, we're going to a new school. That's traumatic for them. And then they scared too. And then when you get into another relationship, guess what? They wondering if it's still the same thing. You know, like, who is this person? Who is this person? Who is this? You know, so during this journey of healing for me, you know, it was important for me to not date and not bring people around my kids. All they saw was daddy going to counseling and mom was going to counseling too. We was separated. We was not together, but I had counseling. There was no new people coming. I ain't introducing nobody. The two people that was here was enough. You know, for these kids, I'm not bringing no new energy in to try to, you know, get them. Nope. That was like, out of the, like, probably 15 years, they met one person, and that was like probably 7 years after, you know, after all this happened. But other than that, there was there ain't gonna be no rotation of people, because they actually need to heal too, because when they witness this, you often will have the next generation of abusers or victims within our kids, and we don't know that. You know, so for me, it was about checking in with them. Now, as the father, as the person that was causing the harm, I had to really go in and like, hey, listen, fellas, I need y'all to know Pops was wrong 1,000%, and not just tell them and apologize to them, but listen to them and tell me what your experience was. What happened? Tell me about the relationship between your mom and I. What did you guys think about that? You know, and I'm telling you, I did that. I got a Yelp review from my kids, and I asked them what was going on. I said, tell me what you think about me as a father. And it was like, we were scared of you. We did not want to talk to you. We were scared of you. And then I asked him, I said, what do you all think about, you know, the relationship between your mom and I? And my son Dante, he was like, y'all sucked. He said, y'all suck. And my other son jumped in and said, all y'all did was fight and argue. And my other son said, we couldn't wait for y'all to get divorced. This is what the kids are experiencing. This is what, because we never hear from them. We're like, oh, I love my relationship. But the kid has to tolerate this hot garbage relationship. They are hostages. They are hostages to that relationship. They hate it, but they can't say nothing to you about it because you're going to get mad at them. You're going to get mad at them because you love that person and it's going to get better. And it's like, well, I just want to put the perspective of them out there to make sure that we all understand that they need healing too. And sometimes the kids will become mad at you for staying in that situation. They'll be mad at you. They will hold a grudge against you because I'm having to deal with this pain because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Now, this is not fair or not. I'm not saying that, but these are natural dynamics that happen in these relationships. All right. So let me park there. Thankfully,
when it comes to the kids, like I thought I was doing a great job of hiding it from my son. You know, when I knew an argument was getting ready to happen because somebody doesn't come home until after the sun comes up, when he got there, I take my son to my parents' house and come back and then have the issue. Make sure the tone is right, you know, because kids pick up on things. Because, like I said, I grew up in a household, my parents didn't fight. So I'm mindful enough to understand I don't want my son to see me fighting with his stand-in father. You know what I'm saying? This is the only father figure he's ever experienced. And when it got to the point where I was like, I don't want my son mimicking this human. I don't want him to think this is what men do around their women. They don't belittle. They don't, you know, try to diminish them. And it wasn't until I finally broke away and I sat my son down. He was turning 9. He was 8, almost 9 years old. And I said, I just wanted you to know that I'm not, me and your dad are going to break up, because he called him his dad. And he was like, I said, we're not going to be together anymore. And he said, oh, okay. He said, yeah, he always makes you cry. That destroyed me right then and there. We sitting there eating ice cream outside, and I was like, he saw. So my efforts were wasted in trying to keep him away and conceal him from those things. And as he grew up, he started asking questions. By the time he hit 14, he said, Mom, I just want to sit down and have a conversation with you. I got questions. Because now he has a voice and the ability to ask, what happened? What was that? Am I tripping? Do I remember some things? But let me know I'm not imagining, because he was little, right? And he said, I understand why you got away from him, because he had certain feelings towards that person that he was afraid to let out. It was some things that he needed to just say, I think you made the right call leaving. I think you do better without anybody. And now this is some years later, right? I too did not bring anybody around my kid. Friends, sure. Dating, not happening. You don't get to be a part of my son's life. You don't get to know him unless there is something solid, serious, and consistent and safe. Now, because I couldn't protect him and conceal him from that chapter the way that I thought I could, I also had to learn that I didn't trust myself in that space for that to happen again. That was along the healing journey also. I don't trust myself to pick the right partner for us. it's us, And it was actually just a couple months ago, my son told me, he said, Mom, I don't really see you ever really being with anybody because you do so well by yourself. He was like, I would like for you to be with somebody just to enjoy life more. But he was like, for survival, you don't need it. You thrive by yourself. And he really broke it down to the point where I was just like, yo, this kid really knows I didn't play victim. He really knows that this made me better. And it was always going to be me putting him first with me and making sure I surround you with men who treat women well, who have great self-esteem within themselves and who understand that's not what you do. That was some BS. And it took me a long time to stop apologizing to him for placing us in that space.
And they hold that. Some of them, somebody said in the comment, my son blames me for that. And sometimes kids will hold that. Other kids will understand that it's not that person's fault. Some will understand. You never know, what the kids are gonna, but they have to heal too. Just like Dawn said, having a conversation with her son, they are victims too. They are not, it's great to move on, to leave, to separate, get a new place, but that new place will still hold the same energy from the old place without the healing part of it. But it is something, like I said, I did want to bring that point up because I do know that sometimes we forget about them. And like Dawn said, my efforts were wasted. We think they pay attention to everything.
Even when you think they sleep.
Yeah, no, and think about it. Think about when we was kids. We was nosy as hell. We was always in stuff. We was always looking, trying to find out what mama doing or daddy doing, trying to who they talking to, who you on the phone with.
What you eating?
Get out of here. It's none of your business.
What you got? What you eating?
Yeah, what you got? Yeah, so just and we kids do that on trivial things. They do it even more so on relationship things. My kids got to the point where they knew that my ex and I did not need to be together. Now think about what it takes for a kid to get to that point, because what do most kids want? They want their parents to stay together. But mine was like, yeah, no, y'all need to appreciate y'all getting us here, but y'all need to go your separate ways, because y'all hot garbage. Like, your relationship is not good. It's not good at all, and we don't want y'all being together. And I remember when we separated, we started doing a little bit of work, and the idea of reconciliation was what came up. And I didn't say anything about it, but she had started talking to them about it, and they got triggered. My kids were triggered. It was like, nah, don't do that again. Don't do that. We good. We got enough. And I remember just thinking like, oh, well, shoot, that's a sign. That's a sign. And that never happened. But again, it is something to consider in the healing journey. But no matter who you are, or whether you got kids or not, this is something that is really serious. And the only person that can change the circumstance is us. Like, do not, and listen, you don't even have to go as far as being in an abusive relationship. If you're in a relationship that's unhealthy,
That's unhealthy.
don't expect the other person to change.
Nope.
You change. Because when you change, that scenario has to change. Either they're going to get right or they're going to get gone. You want either one of them. You want them gone or them to get right. That's how it happens. So, and I always say this too. Something I want to say earlier when Don was talking about when you go to the park and you're working on yourself, as you are doing this journey, one thing that's really good for you to start doing if you're in one of these circumstances is if you can, start going to counseling or therapy while you're in it.
Yeah.
And it'll help you become more awakened. And the person be like, I don't care, go see that shrink. You need him anyway because you crazy. That's what you just tell them that. Say, you know what? You've been calling me this crazy this whole time. I'm gonna go see somebody about being crazy so I can get better for you. Just put it out there like that.
Yeah.
And then when you get there, you're learning techniques. You're learning about yourself. You're learning what you're in. You're learning things that are going to help you exit that circumstance. So it's a good strategy. I just got to put that out there.
Yeah, that's perfect. And one of my final nail in the coffins was when I said we should go to counseling. I'm literally sitting in front of my mother and she's saying, we were at IHOP, I remember that too. We were having breakfast and she said, ask him to go to counseling with you to see if there's anything you can do to work this out. Now, she's not knowing about all the details, but I called him on the phone right then and I said, I think we should go to counseling or something. The first response he gave on that message was, what do we need to do that for?
Ain't nothing wrong.
All I said was, okay. That's your answer right there. That's your answer right there. If you are in a dynamic with a person and they are not contributing to the health of your relationship, okay? Meaning that you're trying to persuade or convince or show them we could do better and they're fighting and resisting you every step of the way, you need to leave. It's over. That is not the person that you want to spend your life with. That is not the person that you can grow with because you're trying to grow and they're trying to stay stuck. You can't grow with them. You can't become more. You can't build anything with them. Anybody that wants to stay in the same spot and not address the issues, not deal with the solutions within the relationship is a person who can't do that with themselves as an individual. They just can't. So you're not going to get too much out of that. If you want more, you have to go get that more by yourself and then align with someone who can contribute to the relationship and the health of it. Yeah. That's just the bottom line.
Align with you first. Mm-hmm. Don't be worried about nobody else. Don't be worried about it. I tell, like I said, you're just going to get it's the same version, different face and different name. That's all it's going to be. It's going to be the same. And they're going to present well in the beginning. It's going to be happy. You're going to be happy because they're nice. Like, oh my gosh, I haven't experienced this in years. And it'll be the same version. Somebody in the comments said, I want to say this, draw closer to God too. And when it comes to domestic violence, there should be a combination, all right? You can go ahead and draw closer to God, but draw closer to your therapist, draw closer to that victim advocate, draw closer to law enforcement, draw closer to all of that. So many people go to church or they go to God and be like, well, that's not the end. That's not how that works. Okay? That's not how that works. You could do that in combination with those other things. Because in my healing journey, I was in church at the time. So I would go to church on Tuesday. On Thursday, I was going to my therapy appointment with a secular therapist. And then after that, I had a men's group meeting on Saturday that I went to. So these are all unrelated. So do the combination, because you going to church, that just you positioning yourself, you saying, okay, God, that's fine. Excellent. Do that. Pray about it. Do all that. But go see your therapist too. Go and deal with your coach, go deal with the victim advocate, call law enforcement if you need to, because too many people are in the mindset of just like, oh, I'm gonna give it to God. That's cool. But then God gave it back to you and said, do something.
Do the work.
Do the work. You be like, I gave it to you. And God like, I sent that email back to you. Why didn't you respond? I sent it back to you. It ain't me doing stuff. It's you doing stuff. The God within you that's supposed to do the stuff. You're supposed to do that. So God is not some magician in the sky that's just going to be like, oh, I'm going to do this. No. You have to do the work. You have to go make the calls. You have to show up to the places. You have to do that stuff. Again, praying on your way there, reading your Bible on the way there, or whatever it is that you're doing on your way. But make sure you go, because this is not something, and I'll stretch this to whatever issue you're going through within this life. This is not, sometimes we look at our religious or spiritual walks like this person's a genie. Like, I rub the lamp 3 times and it's going to get better. No, you got to walk this out. You have to walk it out. And Dawn said this earlier, you have to complete the cycle. Mm-hmm. You got to complete it. You got to go through it. You got to do it. Again, pray, go to church, surround yourself with people or whatever it is that you do, but make sure you show up, because without that, I want to say, I was in my healing journey. We were doing a group. I was in the men's group at a church I was going to. And I remember sitting there thinking like, damn, I'm learning a lot about the Bible, but I don't know nothing about me. I know about Paul and all these other, and I'm like, I don't know me. And it was like this conflict. I was like, man, that's cool to know this. Like, oh yeah, I got these scriptures, I got my faith, but I don't know me. Mm-hmm. And I had this intense desire to start learning me. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna still go to my group, but I need to figure out me. Mm-hmm. Because Paul didn't get me here. Like, he didn't get me. I got me here. So how am I going to figure this out? And so I just wanted to put that out there to make sure
that's real.
That's
real. And I'm the opposite. I didn't learn any. I don't know. Okay, y'all gonna judge me if you need to, but I've already said this. I've been spiritual my whole life. Mm-hmm. I was born with church, but not in church. I don't know where the books are. I don't know what the chapters are. I don't know any of those things. And I'm okay with saying that. Yeah. Okay. So there is not a deconstructing that needs to take place within me in that realm. Right. So am I educated in certain things? Yeah. All different kinds of faith. I've already talked about it. I grew up with Muslim cousins. I went to a Catholic college. I went to a Jewish elementary school. Went back to the hood though, but I went to a Jewish elementary school. I have chanted with Buddhists and sat and become educated and taken theology classes. Right now, I am learning even more through my doctoral program. So it's just a matter of, it's okay to have those teachings, but it's a different thing to say which one is me as far as practice is concerned. Which one is me as far as what pulls me spiritually, what speaks to my heart, what speaks to my soul. That right there is learning who you are. Not what they tell you you're supposed to do. My biggest thing, I've said this before, when they got kids hooping and hollering in church, they're doing that to get your approval. They're getting that so you would celebrate them. Little children have not yet the experience to know that yet, to actually embody what it is that they're there to learn. So no, it's not all the way what people think it is, pretend that it is. We want everybody to say, oh, this little girl, she got this and the Holy Ghost. No, she doesn't. That baby is pure light. And she's being molded into something to meet your approval. She is becoming something other than her true self. And maybe she will find herself in there as well. But who she was before that, that's who she really is. But you're helping her forget. Whew. That's going to ruffle some feathers, I know. But that's just what it is. We help our children forget who they are because of what we think they should know. We don't know them. Let's be clear. We give our children bodies. God gives them soul. God gives them purpose. We don't know. That's between God and the kid. But based on what we believe is the way, is the right, is the teaching, no matter what it is, with church, out of church, this that faith, whatever. We help them forget who they really are. And I began asking my son questions very early. What do you want to do? What do you like to do? Where do you want to go? Do you want to do this? Do you not want to do that? I asked him questions. I didn't make him do anything. And I told him very early, I'm never going to put you somewhere you don't want to be. I'm never going to make you do things that you don't want to do. There's certain things that you have as far as responsibilities and maintaining yourself, like clean your room, do your homework, all those things. But when it comes to the choices for you, I need you to tell me what you want, because that is now something that you're going to have to do as an adult, as a man. You're going to have to make choices for yourself, not to appease anybody else, not to boost anyone else's ego, not to feel accepted by anybody else, but accepting yourself and the choices you make for you. What's right for you? What feels okay? What direction do you want to go in? Not the one that life and society and your faith group, none of that everybody puts on you. What is for you? What speaks to you? What speaks through you? Not something that somebody showed you and taught you, but have you really sat with you long enough? Just like Dom said, he didn't know who he was, but he knew these other people, their stories, why they did it, how they did it, what the outcome was, and how it affected everybody else. But until you go to university, none of that even matters. That right there, in that moment, you are drawing closer to the one true God. The one. Because there is but one. Whether you call it the universe, the divine, God, whatever name you choose to give it, in that is you drawing closer to God. And the church says amen.
Amen. And this process, I got to get going, Dawn. Is there anybody have any questions for us, or anything y'all want to comment, anything you want to say, want to give y'all opportunity? Because we talked about a lot of stuff, especially talking about this world of DV. And I'm glad you brought that up about the kids, Dawn, about tapping into who they are instead of molding them into who you want them to be. Who are they? Who are they? Who are your kids? I like how you said it. You gave them a body. Mm-hmm. You gave them a body. You gave them a body. That was hard. Like that. Yeah. After that, because they come in with their own personalities, and you're like, who is this little kid? Like, yeah, I'm a different person than you. I'm not the same as you. Okay. Yeah. I'm not supposed to be. Yeah, I look like you, but
they're an extension.
Yes.
But they are their own human, just like you are separated in a sense from your parents and their personalities and their, it's to go higher. And if you really understand the purpose of procreation, right? We're here, our children are supposed to be greater than us. They are not supposed to be us. And we choose to teach them our ways and tell them this is the right way. No, this is a way. This is how I did it. I'm just showing you an example. Here's what happened. Here are the consequences. Here are the solutions. Here's the results. This is what took place. Now go make your own choice on how you want to rock this level out.
Mm-hmm. Anybody? Any questions? Any comments? Any questions about what we talked about today? Let's see. But if not, I do want to say that, I do appreciate, we both of us appreciate y'all being a part of this discussion, making your comments. We try to answer all of them. Some of them we got to. If we missed, we sorry, didn't mean to do that. But you guys, a lot of you experienced some of the same stuff that we were talking about. And so I'm glad that you all were sharing some of your stuff in the comments, because it's important to know that there is a community of people who experience the same things. A lot of times with any type of issue that you're facing, you are not the only one. Mm-mm. Trust and believe. All these meat suits walking around here, everybody's experiencing something. Everybody's experiencing something. Like, we all going through something. And, my hope is that you would get to the place of awakening to yourself, to where, like Dawn said, when you awaken to yourself, when you go to the university of you, when you understand you, that is when that's when you're connected to God. That is like, you have to, and This world teaches us everything else, to focus on everything else except for you and your true divine nature. When you can get to that place and you start figuring out that you are an extension of source, God energy, that's who you are. You done something. You done something. I'm trying to tell you. And I woke up from a dark place. I'm telling you, I was in darkness. I was in darkness. I was out here wilding out. And that awakening grabbed a hold of me and was like, hey, snap out of it. Let's go. You're going to do some work now. And I was doing things I had no idea that I was supposed to be doing. I'm over here working. I work in domestic violence. I work in the field of domestic violence. I work in a victims center. Get with my background. You think that's normal? No, it ain't normal. That's divine intervention. That's not me. I can't, that ain't me. That's not me. It's because I followed the path of understanding myself and growing. And then being like who you see today, me, and you see Dawn, this is an example of us following the path that was set before us, and not, but we had to lose the conditioning. All of us had to lose the conditioning of what people told us, and and to lose conditioning, you have to have courage. Ooh. It's scary. It's scary. I'm telling you, because to let go of something, you gotta think about that. Let go of that. No, this is my comfort. This is my grandmother did. This is what everybody did. No, let go of that, and then find out what you need to be. So Linda says, "Thank you. I needed to hear this, and I'm glad that you was listening, Linda. Hopefully, this was helpful to you." Girl. Yeah, Linda, listen, Linda,
definitely. If you know, I'm gonna just say this. One of the things that helped me, in a small, I'm gonna say a very small portion of my healing journey. In 2017, I decided to go through a hypnotherapy session, and the primary focus was rejection. And it took me back to my earliest experience of the feeling of rejection. And then, you travel through different parts. Thank you, Linda. I love you. It takes you through different chapters of life of when you experience that thing, and helps you remember certain memories and things that are at the root of whatever it is that you're going through. So I say this to say, hypnotherapy is becoming something that a lot of us coaches are learning. I intend to, at some point, become certified and understand and know how to offer that to clients, because there are certain things that are deep in there that are hiding for a reason. And if you do want to have true healing, true ascension, you do have to unbox that. But it has to be when you're ready to, because it's hiding for a reason. You actually are hiding it from yourself. And if you are ready to say, okay, I want to deal with this because it's been within me, I've been carrying it for far too long, and it's time. You have to give yourself permission for the box to open. And sometimes you do need some assistance with a practitioner that can walk you through that, and in a safe space, in a safe environment. And that way they can walk you through and coach you through, or some therapists they do it. And it's really healthy. And then once it comes to the surface, you're able to then practice the healing of that thing, and you'll be able to become a victor and no longer a victim of that. So that's a suggestion. Therapy always, counseling always, but when it comes to those repressed memories, that might be something deep that you would have to just have suggestion. Go through a process of suggestion. That's what it is.
Add that too. Add that. And listen to me. Try them all. Do whatever works. Do something though. Like I don't care which one it is. I mean, just do the work. And we talk about the shadow work. And then what Dawn's talking about is bringing the shadows to the light. Once you understand how much the shadow affects your life, you will be livid at letting that thing control you again. You will be upset. So at the end of the day, the work is ours to do. And again, I do consider it an honor and privilege to work on me. It is an honor to work on this meat suit. Like it's a privilege. So all them accolades in this life, I don't care about all that. I want to get my degree in me. At this point, I got a PhD in me, and I'm gonna get a second one. I'm going to get another one because you're never done. By the way, you're never done. As soon as you get that degree, something else comes up, and now you got to do that one too. But
there's many layers. There's lifetimes and levels and things that you're gonna be doing forever, and it's really exciting once you get through the process of facing all of that dark. And you are, and that's what I help people do. I'm an awakening integration coach. Integration is you, your higher self, your physical self, your shadow self, all living harmoniously. Yeah, they have their little spats, but at the end of the day, you move and walk as all of you. And then it becomes fun. And then it becomes exciting. And then it becomes those aha moments. And then it becomes, oh my gosh, that's in there too. Yeah, it's in there too. Okay, well, let's tackle that part of me too. It's really an intriguing experience, and I mean, it's kind of like you become a little obsessed with yourself.
real talk, hey.
You become obsessed with yourself.
When you start finding health, she ain't lying when she said that. She ain't lying. That journey of it just keeps going. And you start discovering things. Linda said, I keep finding the wrong people to try to have relationships with. So let's try this, Linda. Stop trying to have relationships. Let's just put that out there. Like let's pause on relationship. Yeah. No relationship for a while. And I don't know what your circumstance is, but let's just do that. And then when we
Linda, let's talk. Linda, let's talk. DM me your number, and we'll talk this week. And you're in Ohio. What city in Ohio are you in? I never looked at your profile to see what city, but I can. Yeah. Let's talk. Me and Linda, we've been connected for a couple years now, and she's
definitely your people.
Cleveland.
Talk to her.
Better.
Okay. Talk to her. That's right. Talk to her. Cleveland. But other than that, I got to get out of here. I got to
Appreciate you always.